You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou. Happy Friday, everyone. We have got a lot to get into today. We are doing our USFL picks as we do each and every single Friday, going through all four games, picking our winners, kind of breaking down the games a little bit, talking about the betting odds and just kind of how I feel about them. As I always say, this is not gambling advice. This is just kind of what I would think or what I would potentially go after if I was a gambling man, and I'm not. So without further ado, make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Who's coming out on top? Do the Stallions stay undefeated? Do the Maulers come back and win another game after winning their first last week? Fire down in the comment section. Let me know, and let's dive right into it. The first matchup we are going over is at Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time between the 3-2 Tampa Bay Bandits and the 2-3 Philadelphia Stars. Bandits are sitting currently at -2.5 favorites, with the over-under sitting at 40.5. This is the largest point total of the weekend, and I definitely think it is possible that the over gets hit on this one here. I think with the way these two teams kind of match up, the Stars are pretty solid at putting up points each and every single week, and the Bandits, when you look at the way these two teams kind of match up, I think that both of these teams putting up about 20 or so points is certainly possible. Now, Bandits at -2.5, this is probably the one game that I don't think the favorites will win potentially. I don't want to say that the Bandits can't or that they won't, but this is probably like, and it makes sense because this is the smallest margin of victory in terms of all the games. Everyone is pretty much favored at like 7 points or so, give or take favorites, and the Bandits are only at 2.5 here. There's definitely a legit chance that the Stars take this one and steal a win. The Bandits have a lot to prove going into this game. Their running game has not been great. Passing game hasn't even really been great, but the running game, this is an opportunity for them this week to potentially establish something and get some momentum going. They're averaging 90.8 yards a game rushing. That's the Bandits. They're 7th in the league, so the second worst. They're going up against the Stars, who by a wide margin are the worst run defense in the USFL. They're allowing 193 yards a game rushing. That is a ridiculous run total there. So Bandits have not really done a ton on the ground here. Good opportunity to find some momentum here, and I think they should look to take advantage. Protecting Jordan Ta'amu is also a must in this game as well. You are going up against the Stars, who have 12 sacks notched this season. That is second most in the league, and you have allowed 12 sacks this season, which is second most in the league. So a little bit of a mismatch up there. The offensive line pass protection has not been great for the Bandits. They must keep Ta'amu upright and protected if they want to come out winners here. Keep the game clean, keep the penalties low, because Bandits they lead the league in penalties at 41 and second most in penalty yards at 305. Play a clean game, protect your quarterback, try to establish a run game. That'll be your key to success in winning this football game. When you look at what the Stars have going into this, they really do need to find balance in their rushing attack. They are averaging a measly 64.8 yards a game rushing. Not a good number at all. And, there has been a couple of times now where they have just like flat out abandoned the run game. And it's rather bizarre. You can't really win football games, especially in this league, with a completely unbalanced attack. It seems like the most balanced teams are the ones that are doing really, really well right now. They can both pass and run fairly well. And the Stars have just not been able to do that. Now, I will say, credit where credit is due. Their passing game over there in Philadelphia, despite losing Brian Scott and switching to Case Cookus, has stayed really good and really solid. Bandits' defense are 7th in the league with passing yards a game allowed at 205.2, so I do expect them to take advantage of that, but you definitely want to establish a run game. And you couple that with the fact that as good as some of these numbers are, the Stars tend to turn the ball over quite a bit. They are tied for second in the league with 9 turnovers. All they really need to do in this game is protect the football. They have 6 fumbles of those 9 turnovers. This is a solid passing game. If they can just get a running game established here and just don't drop the football, you have a legitimate road to success and potentially winning this game here. So much so that I actually have the Stars picked as the winner in this game here for the upset. I have them winning 24-20, so I do like the over in this game. The over does make a lot of sense to me just with both of these teams and the way they can move the football and the way the defenses match up against the offenses. I do expect this one to be a little bit of a more higher scoring game. Seems like Vegas kind of thinks that as well. So I do like the Stars, 24-20. Give me the over. Going into game number 2 now, we are looking at the Michigan Panthers, who are 1-4, can't seem to get out of their own way, going up against a Birmingham Stallions team that just seems to do everything right and then some, 5-0, undefeated, in prime time at 7:30 p.m. on Saturday. The Stallions are a heavy favorite at -6.5. This is actually the largest point margin for favored teams this week so far in the USFL, a combined total of 23.5 for the favorites. This is trap game week. A lot of these really good teams are playing teams with really poor records, and this is one of those weeks where you think, okay, shoe in picks. I would not be surprised if a lot of people end up going like 2-2 on projections or something like that, maybe even 1-3, just because this seems like a week where, a lot of these good teams might slip up, think a little bit too much of themselves, have read the news clippings a little too much, maybe drop a game. The Stallions, though, I don't know, man. They've come from behind. They've won dominantly. I mean, they have a great running attack, a solid passing attack. I mean, they just do everything really, really well, and they do nothing but impress me each and every single week. Hopefully, the lesson was learned last week, and Jamar Smith continues to be QB1. I don't know why there was that random stretch of Alex Magoo getting a couple of starts the last 2 weeks. I know 2 weeks ago, it was because Jamar Smith was sick. The week after that, not really sure what happened there. Let's keep Jamar Smith as QB1. He has shown plenty that he should be the guy starting for this team, especially last week. CJ Marable's been really good on the ground for them as well. He had 23 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. So if they can just keep this attack balanced the way they have, you have the addition of Bo Scarborough as well. A lot of people were excited about him coming to the Stallions. This is a really good team just all around. Very solid. Victor Bolden Jr. is an awesome wide receiver for them. This is just overall a very solid group altogether. The Stallions have also 9 takeaways as well. Panthers, a team that, like I've said many of times, can't seem to get out of their own way, have allowed 9 turnovers, tied for second best with those 9 takeaways, whereas the Panthers are tied for second worst at 9 turnovers. This is a mismatch waiting to happen for the Panthers here. I mean, they did get they finally got a pretty good game out of Shea Patterson last week. I'll give them that. A couple of second half turnovers really cost them the game, but ultimately, Panthers got to get back to the running game. Reggie Corbin got completely shut down last week. He had, 12 carries for 28 yards altogether. The odds are really stacked against the Panthers in this one here, and I'm having a hard time trying to pick against the Stallions or rationalize any way that the Stallions come out losers in this game. So I do have the Stallions winning. I expect it to potentially end up being a little bit more of a blowout. I have the Stallions winning 27-13, and I am taking the over for this game as well. 37.5 points is the number there. For that -6.5, that definitely feels like a shoe-in, but I don't I do have the Stallions winning by a large margin. I will say that. However, this league has been very tightly contested, and I don't know if this game ends up being as wide of a game, like score margin wise. So while -6.5 isn't bad, it almost feels a little too high. Like a lot of these, the Stallions are -6.5 in their game. The Breakers are 7.5. The Generals are 7. Those are some really high point margins for games that have been decided within like one possession. So, I mean, I don't know how I would feel about betting on like favorites and spreads and things like that this week. I think going after more like over-unders is probably something I would focus on, just because a lot of these are really high. Like, unless you really think that a team's going to get blown out like the Panthers, then maybe you take them to lose for +7.5. Then that would probably make sense. But I just don't know, trying to pick a winning team around like that -7 range. Just like the games have been too close to be comfortable with picking against the spread or for the spread, at least this week. Going into game number 3 now, we are looking at the Pittsburgh Maulers, who are 1-4, against the New Orleans Breakers, who are 3-2. This will be Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. The Breakers, as I mentioned, are -7.5 favorites. So over-under is sitting at 35.5. This is a game I could see the over definitely happening for. If I was to bet on anything here, it would probably be the over. The Breakers, they're heading for a trap game for sure. They've been struggling. They've been kind of a roller coaster. They definitely need to win this game to keep themselves in the thick of things for the playoff hunt. Slaughter has been struggling, I will say that, and I saw somebody point this out on Twitter when I was scrolling through the other day, and it made me want to go back and look, because I felt like this was the case, but I didn't actually look at the concrete numbers until this week. He has 11 turnovers to 8 total touchdowns. He's a net negative right now in scoring, which is not good. The Maulers are a team that turn the ball over fairly frequently. They get about 1 to 2 a game, depending on the game that they're playing, and closer to 1 more so than anything. They're tied for 4th in the league at 7 with turnovers forced. So they got to protect the football here, and that's really the key to success for the Breakers. That, and this defense needs to get back on track to their stifling ways from those first few weeks of the season. They went those first 2 weeks, 10 sacks. They got 1 in week 3. And then after that, nothing. They've had 0 sacks since, hardly any tackles for loss. They aren't really doing a ton getting into the backfield. The pass rush and even the defensive even the defensive line during the run game too has not really done enough to pressure or even just slow things down for opposing offenses, and that's been the biggest problem here for the Breakers. Maulers did finally get a W last week. So there is, a little bit of momentum swinging their way. Bailey Gaither coming back was a massive piece for this team. He is their number 1 wide receiver through and through, no questions asked. With him there, this Maulers team is definitely a different unit. They have to take advantage of the potential turnovers in this game. Like I said, Kyle Slaughter alone has 11 turnovers. That is not good. The Breakers do turn the ball over fairly well, so they don't have a terrible turnover margin, but the fact that Slaughter is accounting for 11 turnovers. 11 turnovers on his own is an absolute problem. So if the Maulers can take advantage of that, I mean, they're in a really good place. Really good place. Other than that, can I pick the Maulers? I don't know. I really don't know. I know Vad Lee stepped in last week, did an excellent job, 170 yards, couple of touchdowns, had a pick. Can he do it again though? I mean, it was 1 game sample size. Very easy to fall in love with a good story. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that he was able to step in and really light a fire under the offense and get things going for the Maulers. I just have to see it again to really believe it. Do I think the Maulers could win this game? Definitely. I called it a trap game for the Breakers. This is one where they should win, but if they drop the game, I wouldn't be surprised. I do have the Breakers winning. Like I said, I do like the over in this game as well. 35.5 is the number. I think the over is certainly possible here. I have the Breakers winning 22-17, so that's a total of 39. Definitely think the over is possible between these two teams. I mean, the Breakers have been pretty good for at least a couple of touchdowns. When they're playing poorly and when they're playing well, they can get more than that. The Maulers, with Gaither in there, and if Vad Lee continues to play at at least even somewhat successful rate compared to what their last couple of quarterbacks were doing, Maulers have a shot to put up some points here, but I do like the Breakers. 22-17, good game there. I think it'll be a little bit closer than that -7.5 that the betting odds are looking at. And then for the final game, game number 4, the Houston Gamblers, 1-3 versus the New Jersey Generals, sitting at 4-1. This will be a Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Generals are sitting at -7 favorites. Again, the favorites in these are just so wide, and I'm having a hard time really buying into them. So if I was anyone, I would just stay away from the spread this week. I don't really like them. The only one is the Bandits one, and I would take the Panthers plus 2.5 maybe. That's if they get an upset. The Generals, though, continue to struggle offensively in the second half. They still have a season high of 10 points scored in the third and fourth quarter combined. This has been a problem all year long for them. They only put up 10 points in the first and second half last week, so they only managed 20 altogether. They have got to get it going offensively. This is a team that is one of the best at turning the football over defensively. And you have an excellent running back in Mark Thompson who has 400 yards on the season. He's averaging 4.8 yards a carry. There's just so much to like about what's going on in the ground game there. The passing game just needs to catch up with what is going on. If they can get the passing game going, even just in a substandard fashion, right now the passing game is just not working. If they can even just get a solid string of plays going, every like quarter minimum, just get something going. This team could be a lot better than their record is. It's so frustrating. You're 1-4 with just so many frustrating tight losses, and they could be very well 3-2 if they can just lean on the ground game, I guess, limit the turnovers through the air, and just lean on Mark Thompson is like my biggest piece of advice for this offense here. Maybe you can come out with the victory in this game. I don't really know. The Generals have looked so good. I mean, they claimed their spot as the number 2 team last week, taking down the Breakers in fairly dominant fashion at that. They got the league's top rushing attack, 180.2 yards a game, and they're facing the Gamblers, who have the second worst run defense in the league. That is one thing about this team that is like very interesting, is they let up a ton of yards, but they turn the ball over a ton. So it's like it kind of like evens itself out. But I mean, they're allowing 133.6 yards a game, so I expect that the Generals are probably going to continue. DeAndre Johnson and like the running backs over there, when they're all just clicking, things get really wild on the ground over there. And DeAndre Johnson, speaking of him, continue with him as QB1. I think at this point he has shown in every way possible that he should be the guy, and the limited opportunities that he keeps getting for whatever reason, because I don't know why they don't just stick with him and stop the 2 QB nonsense, but hopefully they do. 69.8% completions. He's averaging 10.3 yards per attempt. He only has a touchdown and interception. Again, it's one of those things where he has not had this is not a massive sample size that he has to work with, but what he's done has been pretty impressive. He's only taken 1 sack because he's so mobile. And then on the ground, 269 yards. He's averaging 5 yards a carry, and he has 4 touchdowns on the ground. So, I mean, he has 5 touchdowns altogether and only 1 turnover because he has no fumbles. And then, I mean, you look at the defense has just been so good there. I just have a hard time really picking against the Generals in this one, to be upfront. I have the Generals winning. I do think that this one can be a slightly higher scoring affair. I have the Generals up 27-21, so I like the over, obviously, for this game here. But I have a really hard time picking against a lot of the favorites this week because, in theory, all of the favorites should have a victory locked up. The Bandits and Stars is probably the closest one, and I like the Stars in this one, hence why I picked them. I think if I was to pick, like, out of these, because I picked the favorite in all the 3 very large margins, if I was to pick one team to potentially lose, and I'm a Breakers fan, but I am a little bit concerned about what's going on over there with the turnovers. And when, like I said, when I saw that person mention that on Twitter, and then I looked into the numbers and I've seen the way that they've been turning the ball over, I am definitely concerned with just the amount of turnovers that they're dealing with. And the Maulers, they're solid defensively, and if they can get something going with Vad Lee at quarterback, and he was as good as advertised last week, Breakers could potentially be in trouble. If that would be like the largest upset I could pick if I was to pick one of those 3 super favorite games. But those are my picks here for week number 6 of the USFL. I appreciate you guys for all hanging out. Again, as always, make sure you comment down below. Let me know who you think is coming out on top. I'm sitting at 9-11. I went 2-2 the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping to get something above 500 this week. I would love to go 3-1. We'll see how that shakes out. I called an upset, and then I picked 3 favorites. So let's hope this one swings in my favor here. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.